Okay, so we're going to talk about today how we compare and order integers. So remember, integers are a set of whole numbers and their opposites. So that includes all of our negative numbers, all of our positive numbers, and zero. But no decimals, no fractions, nothing like that. Okay, we're just going to compare our regular integers. So when I start at 0 and I move to the right, that's where all of my positive numbers live. Positive numbers are what we're used to dealing with. So these should be easy peasy lemon squeezy for us. Like we should already know that 10 is going to be bigger than 6. If I give your sister $9 and I only give you $3, you're going to be upset because 9 is more than 3. So as we move right on our number line, our numbers just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But for our negative numbers, that is not the case. As we move to the left, our numbers are actually getting smaller. So negative 10 is a smaller number than negative 4, which it's weird to have 10 and 4 in the same sentence and saying that 10 is smaller than 4, but negative 10 is smaller than negative 4. So we have to, when we order negative numbers, think backwards. Because what looks big, like negative 10 looks big, but it's actually small compared to negative 4. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to think backwards here. So let's look at a few problems together. So our very first one says, I'm going to zoom in, so sorry for my pterodactyl. Says Mr. Watt asked his students to place the points below on a number line. So we have point W, which is negative 4/5, X, which is 1 3/4, P, which is negative 1 4/10, and Z, which is negative 1/4. So I want to know which of the following number lines is labeled correctly. So I notice a few things when I look at this problem. The first thing that I notice is everything except for X is a negative number. X is our only positive number. The other thing that I notice is that they're all fractions, and I can't really compare fractions that have different denominators. But when I look at all of these fractions, they're all benchmark fractions, and I can turn those into decimals. So I'm going to do that really quickly. So negative 4/5 would become negative 8/10. Negative 1 4/10 becomes negative 1 4/10. And negative 1/4 becomes negative 25/100. And now this just makes it a little bit easier to compare. But I'm going to start with X, right? Because we said X is the only positive number. Positive numbers live on the right of 0. So right off the bat, I notice that D looks a little odd because Z, W, P, and X are all on the right side of 0, which means this is saying they're all positive numbers. That's not true. Okay. So I have 1 3/4. Now, X is on a different spot for A compared to B and C. 1 3/4 is 1 7/500 as a decimal. Now, when I look at answer choice A, I see that X is right behind the little tick mark that's in between 1 and 2, which I know represents 1 1/2 or 1 5/10. And right now it's saying that 1 7/500 is smaller than 1 5/10, which is not true. So we can get rid of A. But B and C both have it in the same spot, which is in between 1 5/10 and 2, which would make sense for 1 7/500. So now I've got to figure out all of my negative numbers here. I've got to figure out which ones are in the right spot. So remember, when I'm ordering negative numbers, what I have to think backwards. What looks big is actually really small. So I'm going to try and find what looks like it's the smallest because it's actually going to be the biggest. That means I have Z, negative 2,500. That's going to be our biggest negative number, which means it's going to be the closest one to 0. So when I look at B and C, they both have Z in the same spot, and it sure is the closest one to 0. So we've got Z taken care of. The next the next biggest negative number is going to be W, which is negative 8/10. So looking at B and C, they both have W next, but they're in different spots. Again, if I'm moving backwards, halfway in between 0 and negative 1 would be negative 5/10. So B has W closer to negative 1, and C has W closer to 5/10. So I'm going to say that -8 probably belongs a little bit closer to -1 than it does to -5/10. So I'm thinking C might not be our answer, but I'm going to check with P just to make sure that it's all still in the right spot. P is -1 4/10. So this would be -1 5/10. P is right before that because -1 4/10 is bigger than -1 5/10. So I think B is going to be our answer here.